Merci beaucoup.
Thank
Merci à tous.
you to all of you. Merci.
Again.
When do we see?
Thank you so much.
Before we begin, we will begin the ceremony with a land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the province of Newfoundland and Labrador as the ancestral homelands of many diverse populations of Indigenous people who have contributed to 9,000 years of history, including the Beothuk on the island of Newfoundland. Today, this province is home to diverse populations of Indigenous and other people. We also acknowledge, with respect, the diverse histories and cultures of the Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit.
Thank you very much. Bonjour à tous. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Nous sommes très fiers de vous accueillir à cette conférence.
We're really happy to welcome you here.
We'll begin with opening statements from each premier. This will be followed by the historical signing of documents. Then we'll move to a Q&A session with members of the press, and we'll have a photo session at the very end. And now I'd like to invite to speak the Honourable Dr. Andrew Furey, Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Welcome, Grand Chief. Good afternoon, everyone. I have always been fascinated by the history of Newfoundland and Labrador, this beautiful home of ours. Its many reinventions, victories and losses, booms, busts, and booms again. That's why when a moment like this comes along, I certainly feel the weight of the responsibility to get it right. My friends, I am humbled to deliver some extraordinary news with you all. Today, everything changes for Newfoundland and Labrador. Today, after more than 50 years of a lopsided agreement that has been such a contentious point for Newfoundland and Labrador, we finally have a new deal on the table for Churchill Falls with Quebec. We are ripping up the 1969 contract . Not in 2041 when it expires, but today. And together with Quebec, we are starting a new chapter. This deal comes after years of tough negotiations, digging in hard and demanding that our province finally see a bold, future-focused change, to finally see real benefits that will help overcome the shortcomings of the past. And while We can't change the past. We can use it as the opening lines of a bold new chapter of our province. And in this moment, change her future. With this agreement in place, we will have a generational impact on the growth and the prosperity of Newfoundland and Labrador. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge my friend, Premier François Legault, and his team for joining us here today. Premier Legault embraced the importance of getting this new agreement in place. Without his commitment to persevere and to change, with the recognition of the ills of the past, we would not be here. Today, as our province signs a Memorandum of Understanding on a new energy partnership, we mark a new working relationship, a new partnership with the province of Quebec. We are both partners who see the benefits of Churchill Falls and the river to our provinces and to Indigenous communities. I would also like to thank and acknowledge the Grand Chief of the Innu Nation and his team that are here with us today, and their people who have secured indeed a special relationship with the river through the New Dawn Agreement. A special thank you to our team as well, Carl Smith, Jennifer Williams, Dennis Mahoney, and Walter Parsons. And of course, Minister Parsons, who's here on stage, who's always been a great source of counsel, guidance, and friendship through all of this. The 1969 Upper Churchill contract is ending. And it is ending 17 years early. This new deal remedies the inadequacies of the old contract and cements a lucrative path, a fair path forward for Newfoundland and Labrador. It's also a deal that emphasizes our commitment to work with Indigenous communities to continue to build respectful relationships and continue to engage in this important initiative. So my friends, why now? Why 17 years early? The answer is that both provinces will benefit immediately through a new, strong, fair commercial deal. If in Newfoundland and Labrador we wait, we will see almost no revenue for yet another painful generation. Instead, now that void will be filled with our rightful value and our rightful opportunity. It will be replaced with an agreement for the Upper Churchill Power that will bring almost $200 billion of revenue to the province between now and 2075. Clap for that. You're going to clap. Clap for $200 billion. $200 billion new dollars. Every time I say that number, I have to pause and I have to smile. We all know what this money will mean to our province at this moment, and in fact, for years, no, for generations to come. Almost $200 billion. $200 billion has transformative power. It and this changes everything. Today, we all better understand the value of this resource, and we know that the demand for clean, renewable energy is set to rise. Our new agreement will use a price escalator model that allows the price we receive on our power to grow, a market-based block pricing that will unlock increasing and escalating revenues. No more fixed price, no more free power. It will also finally be governed by a fair and modern shareholders agreement with disputes to be resolved in neutral courts. It levels the playing field. If we have the courage to act now, we will see 17 years of extraordinary new benefits for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. Benefits that will start immediately. This new deal will see $17 billion returned to the province between now and 2041, averaging $1 billion a year starting in 2025. But it remains a fair and just deal for both partners, and it is a good commercial relationship. But it will also see our revenues grow to $2 billion a year by 2044 and to almost $6 billion a year by 2060. My friends, we should not wait to act because this is our resource, it is our time, it is our moment. This agreement unlocks more than just the immediate value for this province. For years, Gull Island has been known to be one of the most attractive, undeveloped hydroelectric sites in North America. Well, now, today, that will change too. Through this agreement, Newfoundland and Labrador will be the majority owner, and Gull Island will be developed to produce over 2,000 megawatts of additional clean energy. In addition, we will work together to continue to expand Churchill Falls and build a new powerhouse adjacent to the existing facility while upgrading the existing units. Let me be clear. I will not allow our province to ever repeat the mistakes of previous mega projects. Hard lessons were learned from the 1969 contract, harder lessons still perhaps from recent mega projects that threatened to drown our province in debt. We have worked too hard for too long in order to correct these mistakes, to learn from them so as to not repeat them. We will make sure our province is protected against any future financial risk. Hydro-Québec will bear full responsibility for construction risks on the new generation assets, including any cost overruns, and our province will benefit from thousands and thousands of new, real jobs. For the new developments, Hydro-Québec will compensate Newfoundland and Labrador for the right to co-develop these assets to the tune of $3.5 billion. This amount covers Newfoundland and Labrador's equity requirements without needing our province to invest any of our own funds. The final component is addressing the transmission infrastructure. The Labrador line will be wholly owned by Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. In total, these new projects will almost double the generation capacity of the Churchill River, all to be sold at a fair, modern, and escalating price. Together, these construction projects are worth a combined capital investment of nearly $34 billion in Newfoundland and Labrador. immediately 4 new mega projects and tens of thousands of jobs for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. This new deal will also provide access to more power in the near term to increase the capacity of industrial development in our province. Power that will grow to 4 times the capacity we have now. This means the potential for new development in Labrador can and will become a reality. And, of course, with that means even more real, sustainable, new jobs for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So yes, my friends, this changes everything. It changes everything for all those who stood where we now stand, for economic reconciliation with Indigenous communities, for the schools and hospitals it will build, for the doctors, nurses, and teachers we will hire, for the roads this can pave, for the debt relief this can provide, for the investments in our businesses and the economy this will bring, for the dreams that we never thought possible that are now within our reach, for every Newfoundlander and Labradorian who has wondered what a better deal for Churchill Falls would have looked like, and for every child and teenager out there across our province who will now only grow up with a positive reaction when they hear the words Churchill Falls. The sum total of this new agreement means not $1 billion or even $10 billion, but close to $250 billion to the provincial treasury over its lifespan. It changes everything for our province. It changes everything for the Innu Nation. It allows us to maximize the value of Churchill Falls, to turn on the potential of Gull Island, to attract new industries, to provide a generation of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians with work. We will bring this agreement to a special sitting of the House of Assembly in early January. But I am also asking everyone in our province to look at it as well. Analyze it, understand what's involved, what it means for this place of ours, for our home, for you, for your family, for your grandchildren, all the things it will generate for our future. This is our moment. It wears no political stripe. Its only agenda is to right a historic wrong. For those of us who know that 2041 may be beyond our vision, or perhaps even beyond our years, we now know our opportunity is well within reach and its benefits well within our control. We have shown the strength to persevere through 55 years of a bad deal, the fortitude to negotiate for our benefit, and now the courage to act. My friends, the Newfoundland and Labrador of tomorrow demands that of all of us. This new deal leaves behind the naivety and the short-sightedness of 1969. It doesn't wait to start at some far-off imaginary day. It is here. It is now. This changes everything. It changes everything for all of us in this room, but more importantly, for generations to come. Thank you, and God guard thee, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Thank you. Thank you, Premier Furey. Et maintenant, j'aimerais inviter à prendre...
And now I would like to invite the Prime Minister of Quebec, François Legault.
D'abord,
Premier Andrew Furey.
J'aimerais aussi dire bonjour à Allison et la famille. Ça nous a pris 4 ans. 4 ans de discussion. On a développé un peu de confiance. Mon anglais n'est parfait. On fait partie de notre société distincte. Mais je me rappelle très bien quand Allison et Andrew
et donc, on a commencé à...
And so for me, it's a great day also. I would like, of course, also to greet Minister of Industry, Mr. Parson, President of Newfoundland Labrador, Jennifer Williams. I would like to greet the Grand Chief of the Innu Nation. Je voudrais saluer notre ministre de...
So like to thank our Minister of Industry and Energy, Mr. Christine Fréchette, Mr. Aucoin from Hydro-Québec. Bien.
Started discussing this Churchill Falls famous contracts. First, I knew that Newfoundlanders were not very happy about Quebecers when I came here a few times during those 4 years, and I noticed that. I can understand signing a contract for 72 years with no indexation clause for a businessman. For me, I can understand that there was something wrong. And of course, it's a very important contract for Quebec. It represents 15% of the total capacity of Hydro-Québec. So it's really key for us. But it was also urgent for us to see what will happen after 2041. Because as you know, discussing with the indigenous people, preparing a project, building new dams, you can talk about 10, 12, 15 years. So 2041, it's tomorrow. So we need to know what will happen after 2041. And the other thing also is that we heard, and Andrew spoke to me about Gull Island. And if you consult any expert in North America, they will all tell you that it's the best project in North America. So I wanted to be part of it. Also, I know that, and we're working on the same in Quebec, that we can upgrade Churchill Falls. So there's a possibility to increase the capacity in Churchill Falls and get more electricity. And we all need more energy. By the way, I won't threat Donald not to send electricity. I'll switch to French if you want, because beaucoup de personnes au Québec, évidemment.
So
A lot of people in Quebec are aware of this agreement, which was signed in 1969, until 2041. We wanted to know in Quebec when it was time to sign these kind of arrangements. What's going to happen after 2041? Even Quebecois were pretty concerned about what's going to happen after 2041. We're going to need electricity for our homes. So we were aware too of the two extraordinary projects that existed here in Labrador. One, Gull Island, a project near the end of the water. I won't go into all the details, as I don't know them all, but we don't need all the details now. But that allowed us to have electricity that could cover a really low price. And the possibilities also that were put together, another project, turbines, which were in Churchill Falls, and something that could be added to, that could be increased in the Churchill Falls hydroelectricity project. We talked a lot about all of this to Andrew and myself during about 4 years. And I think, as from the very beginning, we said, you know, we'd like our kids. I have two right there, and he's got three. We said, in 50 years, Dad or Granddad, you did a good job there. Both of you did. Both of you did a good job. Everybody won, to use that cliche.
So I'm very proud to announce today that we are signing an agreement, a 50-year agreement between Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador. There are three parties. One, we renew the contract for Churchill Falls until 2075. We increase Churchill Falls, and we sign a contract that will go from 2035 to 2085, another 50-year contract. And we are going to build a new powerhouse that's called Gull Island, and there will be a contract from 2035 to 2085. So I'm very proud. Yes, of course, it comes with risks. But I thought the experiences, and as Andrew explained it earlier on, the expertise is in Quebec to build and to increase and to update the powerhouse. So we want to make sure it's going to be a win-win deal.
The Newfoundlanders will get a better price starting not in 2041, starting in 2025. De notre côté, oui. De notre côté.
On our side, we'll be allowed to really render a little more secure Quebecois until 2075. So when we talk about next generations, I'm not sure I'll be around in 2075, but it's important for me, for the next generations. It gives us some assurance as well, people from Hydro-Quebec. Michael is in Montreal to explain all the details, but we'll be able to assume our promise that the residential cost will not increase in Quebec more than 3% a year, thanks to this agreement that we're signing today. So it's really important. So from the point of view of residents, Quebecois will continue to have among the lowest rates in North America. Obviously, secondly, we have this challenge in the planet to decarbonize our society. And we'll be using a part of this electricity to decarbonize. Thirdly, we want to use part of this electricity to give Quebec enterprises, give them the possibility to have our green economy, to contribute to our green economy, have all kinds of products manufactured that are done with green electricity, clean electricity. So at the end of the day, we want to give a product that's clean, that can enter into other types of creating other products like aluminum. It's important to have green aluminum, not gray aluminum from China, but we want green aluminum from home.
And so, of course, when we create employments in a manufacturing system, we know that with the electricity, that the extra electricity we will have from Newfoundland, we are going to be able to create between 4,000 and 8,000 jobs for manufacturing companies in Quebec. So these jobs are well paid. These jobs, they are about, people are paid about 35% more than the average salary in our society. So you have to understand that, or we have to understand that we are in a context where the whole planet is looking for energy, especially renewable energy. So I read a lot of analysis in the USA, and they say in 2050 or by 2050, we will have to double our capacity in energy. So we are lucky in Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador to know how to build powerhouses. So we would be crazy to not take advantage of it. It's a fantastic opportunity that we have to do it together. So now let's talk. Let's talk about money. The contract that we are signing today, or the agreement, represents an average cost of 6 cents for Quebec per kilowatt hour. So just to give you an idea, other projects, dam projects in Quebec would cost us between 13 and 60 cents per kilowatt hour. So when there are other places that talk about nuclear, we are not into it, but the cost for nuclear, according to experts, it's around 17 cents per kilowatt hour. So I want to tell you again that it is win-win again. Andrew says they are going to make $200 billion, but for us, if we go from 6 cents to what we would have paid for alternative projects, we are going to save about 200 billions as well. So 200 billions for Quebec, 200 billions for Newfoundland and Labrador.
Let's talk a little bit about capacity. Hydro-Quebec has 32,000 megawatts. 15% of those come from Newfoundland. So 4,800 with the widening and broadening of Churchill Falls and Gull Island. We're going to increase it by 50%. So Quebec is going to have access to 2,400 megawatts more. So 7,200 megawatts, so 20% more of all the megawatts that we currently have in Hydro-Quebec. So it's really an arrangement which is extraordinary for us. That's been 6 years I've been Prime Minister in Quebec. It's certainly the agreement that I'm the most proud of. And what I really like, it's true that in the short term, we're giving a little more money to Newfoundland. But when you're in politics, you got to think long term. You got to think about the next generation, the next generations. I'm really, really proud of this particular agreement because it's going to help the next generations. There's a lot of work left to be done. We had supper together last evening. We're not going to talk about it publicly, but as quickly as possible, as they say, on aimerait, we'd like to close the deal. I know there's an agreement with the Innu Nation for Gull. I know there's work left to be done with the transmission lines, for example, not only in Newfoundland, but in Quebec too. And I really want to reassure everyone that we're going to listen to all the Indigenous communities that are implicated in the arrangement. We want to have partnerships with these groups. It's a commitment that I'm taking today with you. We'll find a way to sit down, and we want it to be win-win for the Innu Nation and other Indigenous nations.
Just to close, to finish, I guess, I would like to thank Andrew again for your vision, for your courage, your patience. We meet regularly at the Bell Center, even though Andrew is a fan of the senator, or senator's fan, but I know his son is his son is a fan for Quebec team. Good for you. Donc je crois que le.
Je veux juste.
So I would like to repeat again what I just said before. Donc
that our grandchildren be happy about this deal. That's the target. That's the objective. Yeah. Je veux aussi.
I also want to thank someone who was very patient. I don't know who's more complicated, if it's Andrew or Michael, but Michael in Hydro-Quebec, he's in Montreal right now. He's doing interviews. He's going to answer complicated questions and so on. I know there's lots of Quebec journalists here. But, you know, Michael Sabia was Deputy Minister in Finance in Ottawa. He was president of the Caisse de dépôt, a man who really gave himself in, gave all the public service that you could possibly expect. I want to say thank you. He was with it since the beginning. He was patient with Andrew in the last weeks. I'd like to talk also with my director, Martin Castinen, who really worked hard in the last few weeks. There were some days when we said, we're not going to get there, we're not going to get there. Not before Christmas for sure. But here we are before Christmas. It's a beautiful gift, a beautiful day for Quebec, a beautiful day for Newfoundland and Labrador, a historic day for the next generations. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Monsieur Legault.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Monsieur Legault.
Signing of documents by the premiers representing their commitment to this agreement in principle. Nous allons donc procéder à une signature de documents historiques par les premiers ministres qui représentent leur engagement envers cette entente de principe. Perfect. Oh. Thank you, everyone. So now, Premier Furey will now join Innu Nation Grand Chief Simon Pukwe at the table next to the stage to confirm Newfoundland and Labrador's commitment to the Innu of Labrador. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. We will now move to the Q&A session. Nous allons maintenant débuter la période des questions destinées aux membres des médias. There are many of you here today. Vous êtes nombreux aujourd'hui. Nous fonctionnerons ainsi. Each journalist will be allowed one question and one follow-up question. Chaque journaliste aura droit à une question et une sous-question. Please introduce yourself and the media you represent before asking. S'il vous plaît, veuillez vous identifier le média que vous représentez avant de poser votre question. The microphone is at the center, and I recognize Alain Laforêt from TVA.
Je n'ai pas besoin de me présenter. Thank you. Last time you saw you in Quebec City, you said, "Show us the money." Do you have enough?
I think it's fair to say that $250 billion and tens of thousands of jobs is enough. It's a fair, but it is, more importantly, it is a fair deal for both parties. It's a good commercial deal that recognizes the ills of the past and creates a new path forward for Newfoundland and Labrador, while allowing Quebec some certainty moving forward. So, Premier Legault did show us the money.
C'était la facile.
Okay.
Bonjour, Monsieur Legault.
Bonjour.
Donc, no Prime Minister has agreed to reopen that agreement. Why do it today? One of them is to secure the need for electricity after 2041, to also be able to have an augmentation of 50% augmentation of the electricity, to increase what we get from Churchill Falls. There's still 16 years, but we need to know where we will be going from 2041 on. And finally, it's also 7,200 megawatt per hour at 6 cents per megawatt. So we economize $200 million compared to what we might have had.
Churchill Falls contract a bad deal for Newfoundland and Labrador. What would you call this one?
It's a win-win deal. 200 billion for Andrew, 200 billion for me. It's fair.
And Premier Furey, you mentioned a special sitting in the House of Assembly in January. Will this agreement be debated in the legislature?
I have said from day one, since becoming Premier, when there was discussions around this historic and generational opportunity, that this MOU would be debated in the House, and it will in a special sitting in early January. I think it's the rightful place for it to be debated. But as I said in my speech, we want everyone to consider it. It is win-win-win for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. If you consider where we started with an unfair old deal. This is the 1969 contract, and we are endeavoring to rip it out. Oh, boy.
Next question. Next question.
Véronique Prince, Radio-Canada, bonjour. Monsieur
Legault, does that signify in short terms that we don't need to make any dams in Quebec? New dams? Not at all. You heard me often say that we want to double the capacity of Hydro-Quebec. Our discussions are going ahead well with all people involved to increase the capacity of big dams in James Bay, continuing with the Inuit on the north coast for increase Manikutab. We're continuing to develop and to accelerate We're open to also to Marikuta, Petit Makutina. The file is not closed. What we want is to really double our capacity of Hydro-Québec. I think that the best arrangement we can make for the next generation is to have lots and lots of electricity, of energy, renewed, available in Quebec. Given your ambitions there, and decarbonization, for example, do you think that this particular agreement here is going to, have you looked at the number of industrial projects, or we're going to be able to increase, be able to attract? We identified, obviously it depends of the size of the project, but it should create between 4,000 and 8,000 jobs in the manufacturing area. Just this particular agreement, if we sign with the Innu and the Cree, if we continue our other developments, it'll be a lot more than that. There's really an opportunity here that's extraordinary for us. We're giving a lot of security to our energy for the residents in Quebec. Secondly, we're giving a margin of manipulation here to be really at the top of North America for our residents, and we're also developing the manufacturing sector in Quebec in the green economy, really green, green aluminum, batteries for electric vehicles, and so on.
Of former hydro projects, will there be any independent oversight of these new developments or this new contract?
Well, certainly the new contract reflects an existing asset. There have been lessons learned. There's a full LeBlanc Commission report based on, and will give us guidance as we move to the next stage in development. So certainly that's something that we would entertain, and certainly something that we would enact with respect to new developments.
And this is a question for both premiers. Of course, Doug Ford in Ontario has threatened to stop selling power to the United States.
After today.
No, but he's threatened to stop selling power to the U.S. amid tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. Is that something either parties here will consider as well?
Well, I think the Premier and I both share significant concerns when it comes to the suggestion of tariffs, not, by the way, exclusively for the citizens of Newfoundland and Labrador or Quebec or Canada for that matter. These tariffs will have significant impact on families and macroeconomies on both sides of the border. We hope it is just bluster. We're preparing as if it is not. There will be no winners in a trade war. Certainly, from Newfoundland and Labrador's perspective, we have no interest in stopping the flow of oil and gas, our incredibly valuable and now well sought after world-class oil and gas to the United States. Nor do we now have any interest in stopping export of any electrons that could be produced in Labrador to the northeastern seaboard. I happened to have a call with the New England governors the other 2 or 3 nights ago, and there is a significant degree of concern on both sides of the border. And I think we need to bring it really down to a local level so that the president and decision makers on both sides understand that this could be incredibly punishing to not just the economy, but to the tables and the gas tanks and the electricity switches of every household across the northeastern seaboard.
Yeah, I had the chance to meet with Mr. Trump last weekend in Paris, and he told me very clearly that we can avoid those tariffs if we do what needs to be done with the borders. He doesn't want to see any more illegal immigrants coming from Canada to U.S. So I think the best choice right now for Mr. Trudeau is to table a plan with money, with a number of people to better secure the border. I think we have to do that. It's a lot better than getting 25% tariffs starting on January 21. So I prefer that than starting a war and stopping sending energy to United States.
Prochaine question. Next question.
Oui, bonjour. Tommy Chouinard, La Presse. J'aimerais...
I'd like to come back to the evaluation of 200 million on each side, billion on each side. So what's going to happen at the end of 2041 in Quebec? They're saying that if we pay more until 2041, the cost to us is going to be 9 billion. But on the other side, Mr. Furey said that it represents 17 billion. So why is there a difference between the two? And what's the logic behind the decision to take this arrangement and leave behind the agreement that was already recognized by the Supreme Court? You have to be careful when you look at these figures of 2041. Quebec had 34% of Churchill Falls, and there's capital amounts that are paid for Gull Island by the government of Quebec, so for construction of Gull Island. But I want to come back to what I was saying before. So a part of, from 2035, we're going to have more electricity because of Gull Island and because of the increase of Churchill Falls at a very good price. And after 2041, we're going to have more electricity for a good price. So to say that in the total, 7,500 megawatts at about 6 cents a kilowatt hour, I don't know anyone who would refuse a deal like that. Thank you. Now, looking at the ceremony that you just had here today with the Innu Nation from Labrador, I'm going to assume that it's about the development of Gull Island. Why were there not consultations on the Quebec with the Quebec indigenous groups to have the same sort of arrangement, given that the transmission lines are going to cross their particular lands? And how can you be in what, just how much trust can you have with the particular groups? How sure can you be that things are going to go well? Well, when you make a dam, the first thing that we assume is that there's going to be some sort of agreement with the indigenous communities that are touched. So that's what we did with Gull Island. Now for transmission lines, for example, it's a process of discussion that's going to take place in Quebec. Part of the line is in Newfoundland, Labrador, let's say. The other part is in the Quebec area. So yes, I'm quite confident that we'll find solutions like we did in the end. So why not already have these consultations? I think that it was important that the discussions take place with the 3 projects, or about the 3 projects, and that there be an agreement about the river that's going to be touched by Gull Island. As far as transmission lines are concerned, they're less important to me right now, but we'll be looking at that in a second round. We'll do it properly. So is that necessary in carrying out the project? Well, the lines have to go somewhere. So there can be different types of areas, different paths. But our lines are excellent at the present time, and our arrangements with the indigenous groups are very, very good. So we'll be talking to the Innu groups. We'll be talking about other projects. I know there's been a reaction that came from what you were saying earlier. Because we're signing with Newfoundland today, does that mean we don't want to negotiate with the Innu? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Next question.
Sins of the past with previous hydroelectric projects. What do you say to people who hear about tens of billions of dollars being spent on new projects and feel worried?
So first of all, we're fully protected with respect to the new projects. It's financed against a cost plus PPA. Different than Muskrat, not to get too technical, because I think that's the project you're referring to. The customer in the cost plus was us. So as potential overruns occurred, we as a society were struggling with how we bear those costs. In this scenario, not only does Hydro-Quebec pay our equity portion for Gull Island, so no new cash from Newfoundland and Labrador, they assume the risks of all overruns because they are ultimately the customer. Now, they can choose to mitigate the rates like we have, or they can choose to bear it within the cost plus PPA. So it is we are financially secure in that respect. So it is very different than the first project in that it's not a fixed price, it is escalating, and it is very different than the other project in that it is secured differently. So while I can understand that there is still a trepidation given the previous mega projects, this is financed differently, it is protected differently, and at the end of the day, the next logical question you should have, well, if it goes over, will our equity piece or our ownership be diluted? It will never be diluted.
The commission date for Gull Island just over 10 years away. What needs to happen to meet that date?
Sure. So first of all, the Premier and I had a great dinner last night in which we discussed our commitment to accelerate towards definitive agreements quickly, because it's necessarily in both parties' interests. By the way, that's a good sign that it is a good deal for both sides. As the Premier suggested, this project is attractive, not just because of the capacity it can produce, but because of some of the permitting and some of the agreements that have already been in place. So while there is much work to do, we believe that with a partner in place, that we can move forward to meet those timelines. Now, anyone would be crazy to get up here and say to you with any project, renovating your bathroom or anything else, that you could say that it would come in on time. But that is the date that we are going to drive towards together.
Prochaine question.
Nicolas Lachange, Journal de Québec, Journal de Montréal. Vous avez souvent dit, Monsieur Legault.
You've often said, Mr. Legault, that the energetic transformation needs to be useful within Quebec. So when you see these jobs created elsewhere, does that concern you? No, I'm happy. We've already announced that we're going to continue to announce all kinds of projects with wind turbines. We're confident that we're going to have various other projects for increased powerhouses in La Grande and in the North Coast, La Côte Nord. Perhaps do a Petit Catina. So no, it's the contrary. On the contrary, we have 35,000 jobs in construction. We're going to continue seeing that in the years to come. No, there's going to be jobs for everybody. We want both. In certain projects too, Hydro-Québec is the owner and the manager. We're going to have 400 people involved with design, and for transmission lines, we're going to have 700 more people. So there, just looking at that, there's jobs. Already it is quite a challenge to find enough people in construction for what's coming in the north of Quebec and on the north coast. There's a number of investments in Quebec right now that were held up by digs, like 9-volt digs, which caused a little bit of fear and risk. You talked about risks here as well. What sort of risks are you thinking about when you talk about risks? Well, obviously, we're taking the risk of the cost of construction of Gull Island. I'm confident that with the expertise that Hydro-Québec has, it's not the first time they've constructed the powerhouses. I understand. I'm confident that Michael is cautious, and what do we say? He's looked on both sides. He's covered it all, and I'm quite confident that these risks are going to be taken away. Next question.
Premier, I'm curious to know how will the Innu Nation continue to be engaged throughout the process as these mega projects are planned?
Well, we're quite grateful to have the partnership with the Innu Nation. We have done some incredible work together over the last few years, but first let me credit the Innu Nation of having the courage and the foresight to construct a real, solid, and appropriate agreement when it comes to the New Dawn and the Upper Churchill redress. So So we have committed to the Grand Chief and to the leadership that we will continue the dialogue that we have had to ensure that not only is their interest protected and respected, but that when there is other opportunities to partner, whether it be transmission lines or new turbines, that we certainly are welcoming and wanting to have that conversation. So that pretty much answers that. But we're very, very happy to have that ongoing dialogue and constructive.
Reporters heard today that there will be, at the peak, 5,000 workers needed to get these projects finished. What is the plan for developing a pipeline to make sure there are skilled people up there and available to do those jobs?
That's a great question. So first of all, I want to make sure everyone understands that these jobs will flow, especially when it comes to Gull Island and the EA that has been laid out in a very prescriptive manner for Gull Island, that they will go to Innu first, Labrador second, and Newfoundland third, and then to the rest of Canada. It is our job now to continue to grow the pipeline for those skilled trades and engineers and others who are going to be required to design and build these projects so that we can fully reap the indirect benefits to the people of this province. I have no question that there is a generation of teenagers who will have plenty of work to do.
Prochaine question.
Oui, bonjour, Marco Belair-Cirino du Devoir.
Monsieur Legault, your colleague said that the Newfoundland government is going to be debating this particular arrangement. Is the Quebec government going to have the same sort of debate before it's officially put in place? Yes, we're going to examine it very closely. We're going to discuss it. We're going to be very, very transparent. Like, as you know, our government is very, very open. But we're going to be very transparent. It's an agreement that we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, so we'll be very transparent. So is there a historical file between Quebec and Newfoundland? What about the border? Today, Quebec and Newfoundland look very precisely at the border. Is that still happening? We didn't have any discussion about the border at this point. It's not a subject for today.
It's not a subject today. It's not a subject ever.
Okay.
Prochaine question,
I just
s'il vous
have a
plaît.
question for you, Premier Furey. When you woke up this morning, did you say to yourself, it's payback time?
No, not at all. I think that the past is the past, but the future is ours to write. And if
Next question.
Juanita Mercer with the Telegram. In terms of risk to Newfoundland and Labrador, there is a clause in the MOU that, in simple terms, says that Newfoundland and Labrador has to enable the new projects and has to do everything it can to ensure the projects go ahead. If the province is shown to not do that, then the power the province thought it would have access to will be capped. Premier Furey, how concerned are you about this? And Premier Legault, how important was that clause for Quebec and why?
So it's important to recognize that that clause is important security for both sides. If for some reason, for example, market forces change, Quebec decides that this is not indeed the lowest cost option, and they decide to pull out of this agreement, equally that applies for us. So if they pull out, then we still have access to that deemed power from Churchill Falls 1. So it is not necessarily, as you described, just a unilateral protection mechanism. It is protection bilaterally should forces change. There are, as you can imagine, 3 different scenarios. One is it's within our control, one is it's within Quebec's control, and one is it's just beyond anybody's control. We have agreed to own what we own, and consequently want to be appropriately incentivized from Newfoundland and Labrador's perspective, but equally from Quebec's. And so we are confident that we will not hold this up. It's not only in the best interest of the Treasury of Newfoundland and Labrador, it's in the best interest of the economy of Newfoundland and Labrador and the workers of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah. Yeah. For us, the deal makes sense, partially because of God Island and the upgrade of Churchill Falls. So we wanted to put some incentives to make sure that these two projects will be done. That's it. And I'm confident that it will all be done.
But just to be clear, taken out of context, one line of an MOU, the new Churchill Falls PPA is non-conditional.
Premier Furey, do you expect the debate in January to result in any changes to the resulting agreements yet to be signed? And for both premiers, how open are you to making any changes that people might suggest?
This has been 4 years of tough negotiations. The language has been, we have sweated over it, we have debated it, we have screamed at each other about it. The language is the language, but this is an MOU, and I would commit to bring the definitive agreements back to the House of Assembly, to the People's House as well.
Mesdames, Messieurs, bonjour. Patrice Bergeron, La Presse Canadienne.
Monsieur Legault, I'm not following you about the 200 billion. How do you see that going to Quebec? Well, we're saying that in total, it's going to cost 6 cents a kilowatt hour, the whole arrangement, including the increase at Churchill Falls and Gull Island. So our alternatives at the time were to construct more dams in Quebec. So now we're talking about the costs between 13 and 15 cents. I believe that will be what it would be, between 13 and 16 cents otherwise. So the difference between the two of those, that is, we have an economy, we have a savings if we don't make those other transactions. So we'll look and say, well, we'd have to spend more money to make more dams. It would cost us more money, for example, than if we renew Churchill Falls, as we're talking about here today, and the new arrangement at Gull Island. So the Innu in Washington, they have questions about Churchill Falls. Is that in the balance when you're negotiating? How much it may cost? How much might it cost for the Innu in Quebec? We're having discussions with Mackenzie and with the Inuit, and I can tell you, or the Innu, I can tell you, I feel confident. So we're looking good at other types of challenges that we're having than those particular ones.
So Quebec will be paying $3.5 billion to develop these other mega projects. When does that money flow, and is that contingent on anything?
So the first 1.3, give or take, a billion will flow immediately on retro to January 1st, 2025. And it will be reserved. We will treat it responsibly, ensure that we recognize that it needs to be used for potential future equity raise. The rest of that will be paid at the appropriate time with respect to the equity calls in the projects.
And just following up on the question that was asked earlier about the Innu Nation, can you speak more about what was done in the lead up to this announcement to rectify some of the concerns that they were bringing forward?
Sure, and over multiple Indigenous groups, but in particular the special relationship that the Innu have with the river. The Grand Chief and I, and Peter and I have developed significant relationship, recognizing, and I've said it to them, it was not my intent in any way, shape, or form to cause any issues with rate mitigation. But I had learned from that moment, as good as it was for the province, it was not perceived to be good for the Innu Nation, and consequently we've been striving to work together to redevelop that social relationship, but also ensure that it has economic reconciliation in the forefront. And I believe today is not just a symbol of that economic reconciliation, it is indeed a definitive action that respects the rights as dictated in the New Dawn and the redress of the Innu to the Churchill River.
Next question.
Premier Furey, the draft agreement over Churchill Falls about 20 years ago, Newfoundland and Labrador wanted 100% equity in Gull Island. Then today we're moving forward with Hydro-Quebec and Newfoundland Hydro shared equity. Is that something that was politically possible due to the negative experience of Muskrat Falls?
Look, you have to look forward. You have to learn from the mistakes and lessons, not all mistakes, of the past. And when we took consideration of the whole package, understanding that our equity position would, when you include the transmission lines, would essentially be equivalent. As long as we didn't repeat the mistake then, therefore, of Churchill 1, then that opened a value space for Newfoundland and Labrador, but equally for Quebec, in which if we have a respectful relationship in which there is profits to be made for Newfoundland and Labrador, then short of holding on to the antiquated notion of fighting for the sake of fighting, why wouldn't we entertain that? Especially when you look at Muskrat Falls, as you suggest, 900 megawatts. This is 2,200 megawatts. There's going to be much greater debt associated with it. It would be a much larger risk than the Treasury or potentially even the society more broadly in Newfoundland and Labrador would tolerate.
I've heard a deal like this described as a nation-building opportunity for the Prime Minister. There's no federal representation here today. Given the high capital costs, are you looking for some help or opportunity to work with Ottawa in the future on this?
Look, it's too early to suggest how we're going to raise the funds and what and how and who we may try to leverage. But that said, Ottawa was not particularly silent in our strategy of how we got here. It was important for me after becoming Premier to recognize that there could be a potential, given the relationship, to do something with Churchill Falls, to ensure that rate mitigation was dealt with, and it was dealt with in a way that didn't see rates double in Newfoundland and Labrador, because that would have put us in a significantly different negotiating position when it comes to this current round of negotiations. So the federal government, while maybe once removed, had an important role to play with respect to rate mitigation, and that allowed us to position ourselves appropriately as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians at this table, not in a position of weakness, but in a position of equivalence. That said, those discussions about how we finance this moving forward, we'd certainly be open to having discussions, I think, with whatever entity made the most sense financially.
Next question.
Just a quick question on rate mitigation. The Innu Nation had previously said that if a deal hadn't been struck on rate mitigation in Muskrat Falls, that any new construction would be blocked, or that they would threaten any new construction. How is that? Has that issue gone away? Can you explain what has happened to that?
Yeah, no problem. So as you may be aware, we had the good fortune to travel to Natwashish and to meet with the Innu Nation, specifically as it pertains to rate mitigation, and the Grand Chief and I and the Attorney General for Newfoundland and Labrador went and reached an agreement with respect to rate mitigation and how it was perceived to impact their future and current benefits.
And what is that agreement?
That agreement is that agreement is theirs with their knowledge and for them to share.
Has there been a change to the New Dawn agreements that allows this to happen?
No, this was specific to rate mitigation.
Thank you very much. I think this concludes the Q&A session and the press conference. Please remain seated. I now invite the dignitaries in front of the stage for the official photos. Les dignitaires sont invités au devant de la scène pour la photo officielle. Merci beaucoup à tous. Thank you.
You, everyone. Merci.